Howdy y'all, I'm Ashley Maverick and today I'm presenting on a master's degree. I decided to talk about master's degrees because there's a lot of things I could do after I graduate, but I really wanted to narrow it down to give myself a more structured plan for my life. I know I want to eventually get a master's, eventually get a doctorate, eventually be a professor, but in order to do those things, I need to make tangible steps right now so that I can achieve them. So I decided this was a perfect opportunity for me to look into something I'm really wanting to do. So hopefully what I've found can help you in some way. First, I'm going to talk about compatibility, and that has to do with the multidisciplinary degree and finding a specific degree that's compatible with a more generalized degree, which is a little bit complicated. If you think about it, is kind of difficult. And then I'm gonna look at locations, trying to find a place that fits me, my lifestyle, and my plans for the future. Especially since I'm getting married next month, then I can't just be considering my future. I have to be considering my fiance's future and what's best for the both of us together. So you'll see that I narrowed it down to UT Austin and Texas State. I'm going to talk in specific about those two schools and what it means to apply to a master's degree at those schools. And then I'll just wrap it up for you and you'll be on your way. So compatibility. I think it's important to find a program that's flexible with your degree. For me, it's English and theater. So those are actually some of the more easy minors to fit into a master's because they're so interrelated. There is a lot of similarity. If you think about, drama and theater, you think of acting and the stage, but what's behind that and what's driving that is the writing. So you think of Shakespeare, in almost every English class you read Macbeth, or you read Romeo and Juliet, at least in high school, definitely not in college, but I've already read Macbeth probably 3 or 4 times for a class, and so, you think of those kind of texts being used and analyzed in English courses, and then also from a theatrical standpoint, them being used to express different things to the audience. So those two degrees actually go pretty well together. I actually have a third aspect that I can throw in when I'm considering. So I also have my Associates of Education that I'll be getting when I get my bachelor's. The only class I have left to get it is Spanish 2, which is only offered in the spring. So I'm taking that this spring, and then I am graduating 2 degrees at once, which is kind of fun. So that's something I could have thrown in. I could have done like an English education type master's, or a performance education type master's, but I kind of wanted to focus a little bit on the theater and the English, not so much on the education, because I think the education is what's going to come into play later when I'm thinking about how to take what I'm learning and express it to others, versus, it would work either way, but I just wanted to keep both the English and theater, so there's a lot of things I could have done. This is just kind of how I decided to narrow it down with the English and theater together. You can imagine that it's difficult to find something because not every degree is as flexible as mine is, but you can't apply for an aerospace engineering master's. That's just probably not something you can do. It's not something I can do. I can't imagine anyone but like my brother-in-law, who's an aerospace engineer, being able to do that because it's very specified. Finding masters that aren't so specific is kind of where the struggle comes in, but it's possible. I'll tell you that. I've looked into it and it is possible. Let me see. Okay. So locations, I chose to look at Central Texas, to look at like Austin, San Antonio, San Marcos, Round Rock, those kinds of areas, because this is where my family is, and this is where my fiance and I intend to stay, more or less. We might move a year or two here or there, but we really want to stay in this area. It's where our families are, and we really like the culture surrounding it. I love Texan history, and I love the food. One thing that's kind of led me to this is that I used to work overseas. When I worked overseas, it was really difficult to be away from friends and family, and I was just really kind of sad all the time, and I don't want to have to do that again. So I just want to stay in this area. I missed a lot of birthdays, and it was hard. So when I was looking at locations, I looked at, what schools are in the areas that I want to be in. I looked at what degrees did those schools offer, and then I considered online. Now, online is something that works for a lot of people, but it's kind of an iffy choice to make, just because I've had a lot of advisors tell me, if you want to do all online, it should be fine, because online is becoming more and more accepted as media is turning to the internet and other things are turning to the internet, and the internet is really kind of becoming a major player in life, in every aspect of life. But it's still, online degrees are not looked on as highly as like more accredited type universities are. So with all those things in mind, I narrowed it down to UT and to Texas State. For UT, I chose, within their theater program, I chose the performance degree. Now, their statement about this from the website is that students examine a wide range of performances, text, and embodied practices in order to consider the myriad ways in which performance both reflects and makes cultural, historical, and political meanings. That's something that's really interesting to me, and I really like that it looks closely at the text, which I think incorporates my English aspect. So UT's deadline for admission, they only admit in the fall semester for the master's, and it's December 15th, just a couple weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks away. You have to submit your official transcripts. You have to take the GRE and submit that. You have to have 3 letters of recommendation. You have to have a resume. Thankfully, we have those. You have to make a statement of purpose, which we worked on a little bit with our cover letters, I think. And for the specific one I chose, you have to submit some writing samples. It said probably 2, and they should be 5 to 15 pages. And then there's like the optional, if you have any experience with performance work or any other related materials, that those should be submitted as well. So then Texas State, the one I chose was their dramatic writing degree, which is also in their theater school. So the MFA degree options expand the skills of students, preparing them to work in regional and national theaters and to teach at the university level. So that's kind of exactly what I'm looking for, really. The Master's in Fine Arts helps you to teach at the university level. So they have a dramatic writing master's for professors or people who want to become professors. So that was awesome when I read that. I was just like, wow, it's like they created this for me. Now, Texas State is kind of difficult to apply to, honestly. There's a lot of requirements. But luckily, they accept their applications up through March 15th. And it also said on their website that they're a little bit more laid back with it, so they have a flexible deadline. So I'm sure if I were to reach out to them and I said, I need an extra month, is there any way you would consider my application late? if there were any extenuating circumstances, like if I got in an accident or something like that, I think they would be pretty willing to work with me. Granted, that doesn't mean that I would make it in. Texas State, and especially their theater program, is very, very prestigious. So, yeah, it's a pretty great theater program that they have there. So you need to have a bachelor degree, which you also need for UT. I'm almost 100% sure, but they did not list that. You need the transcripts. Texas State mentioned a GPA, so it said 2.75. I hope we all meet that, but I don't know, maybe if you've had some difficult times. 24 undergraduate hours in theater. That's the one that I'm not sure that I fit. I might have to try and take some extra undergrad credits in theater in order to actually be able to apply for this degree. And that might be something I could work out with Texas State and say, hey, if I spend a year taking an extra, 2 classes this semester, 2 classes next semester, could I, do your degree in theater next year? So that's a possibility. But yeah, I don't think I have that many hours. I think I have about 18. Then they have a couple tests, the TOEFL and the IELTS. I don't know that that's how you pronounce them, but you have to take one of them and you have to get a certain number on your score. I don't really know how the numbers work. You also probably don't. That's why I kind of just didn't include it. It said to include your resume, statement of purpose, a theater portfolio, 2 letters of recommendation, and a sample of creative writing. So there's a lot of stuff to include for that, but there's a little more time. And that's really kind of what I looked into for this assignment. I hope that it helped you to understand what the steps to finding higher education are, and maybe if you decide to look into a master's or doctorate or anything like that, this will help you with your endeavors. Thanks.